Hello, everyone. Sorry that this started a little bit late. If you believe it or not, we had some of our own Zoom drama, all using one account. So I'm sorry for letting you in a few minutes short here. I'm just going to wait for everyone to trickle in and then we'll get started. All right, so attendees are trickling in here. I'm Jasmine Hoffman, the head of experience at the New Jersey Tech Council. And I figured that with everything going on right now, it might make sense to have a bit of an introduction to Zoom and Slack. I'm sure many of you have heard about it or perhaps are using it now, and wanted to provide more of an open forum webinar here where I can share some of my screens and share a little bit about how we're utilizing Slack and Zoom at the council, and hopefully just answer any of your questions, provide a little bit of guidance, and share some best practices. I'm actually newer to using Zoom. I never used it at my old organization. I'm new to the council, but I have to say I've learned quite a bit recently and think the tool's pretty powerful. So I'm hoping that this webinar helps many of you feel comfortable using it as well. I want to encourage any of you to ask questions. You can do so at the very bottom of the webinar by hitting the Q&A button and it'll come right to me. And you can also raise your hand, and if you want, I can contribute your audio to this webinar as well so that we can take questions from any of you that are sitting in here today. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna keep an eye on the Q&A, so at any point in time, if you wanna just chime in, I'm here. To get started, right now, many of us are working remotely or dealing with circumstances that are pretty unprecedented in the business world right now. While a lot of us are familiar with working remotely or working through email, Slack, Zoom, Google Docs, Microsoft Teams when we're working on off hours or traveling, this is definitely a new situation because remote work is really now the standard. So I'm hoping just to provide a little bit of insight here on how to best utilize these tools. To get super granular with it, Zoom is a remote conferencing tool. It's the platform that's currently powering this webinar. It's mostly used for scheduling meetings that are either accessible via phone or accessible via video. The tool has grown in popularity over the last couple of years due to its really nice functionality where folks can either dial into a call, they can use their phone audio, they can use their computer audio, they can use video from a phone app or from a desktop app. They can join on the website. Like, it allows different folks that are comfortable with whichever platform they might like to join in on one collaborative tool. Oh, I'm getting a question. Someone is interested in how I can cover when and how the camera is off or on. Sometimes folks have trouble telling when or not they're on video. So this is definitely a great question. So oftentimes on your computer, there will be a little light on the webcam if it's built into your laptop or desktop, or oftentimes before joining a Zoom call, it'll prompt you to either join with video on or off, and it's actually a setting in Zoom as well. So as you create a new meeting, a scheduled meeting in Zoom, you can choose to have host your video on or off and participants, anyone else joining the videos, on or off. One other safeguard you can do that a lot of folks have been implementing is a small either piece of tape, or they actually make sticky sliders that you can put on your computer that will literally just completely cover the video. And this is one extra step that you can take to ensure that your camera is secure and that your video is only available when you're interested in having it shown. I would encourage anyone these days that's joining Zoom calls to try to join in on your computer or on your phone using video. This is a really important tool to use these days because it allows people to see your face. Like, I could just as easily host this as a conference call, but we found that people feel in times of isolation that this is a great opportunity to still see one another, to interact. And I'm sure many of you have noticed that over time, you know, it's nice during these isolation periods to see another person's face, to see their hand motions. People tend to be a little bit more expressive, and oftentimes pieces of communication that are lost in writing or over Slack or over email can be redeemed through platforms like Zoom for video chats. So that's one question I've gotten, and I definitely encourage you all to write in any others. So that's a quick lowdown on Zoom, which is what we're using here right now. Zoom is available as both a free and a paid platform. So if you wanted to go on to create one right now, the URL is zoom.us. From there, you can create team accounts, individual accounts, and what's really cool about it is you can do quite a bit to customize your settings. So you can customize audio preferences, video preferences, you can customize your meeting ID, you can use the Zoom platform to schedule specific meetings that are in your day-to-day. Actually took us a couple of screenshots in advance, which I'll share with you after I check this chat question. Okay, Maya Curry has just asked about using Zoom to conduct live events. For example, an event with multiple speakers that would be videoing from different locations. Do I have experience coordinating something like that? So let me answer Maya very quickly before I show you these couple of screen grabs I took earlier today. So what we're doing right now with Zoom is something that's definitely feasible to do for a live event. Like just as easily, I could invite in, and we'll actually be doing this on Friday if any of you would like to join, a webinar with multiple participants. So we can have as many as I think 39 or 49 different videos on screen, all coming in from different locations, all contributing audio and speaking as if it was a panel. So the difference right now between like Zoom meetings and webinar mode is that the people that are listening into this webinar right now are simply listening. I can convert you to panelists so that you could come onto the screen and contribute as well. Or I can have folks that are raising their hands contribute their audio, which I can try in a second if you'd like. The difference there for webinars means that like if you were to have 4 or 5 people in panelist mode, there would be 4 or 5 different videos on the screen. They would all hear one another, be able to collaborate back and forth, and you'd still have an audience that would be able to listen into that and tune in. And Zoom has a variety of different tiers. We have one that allows up to 500 webinar participants, but you can go more than that. There are also a bunch of other virtual events platforms out there. Hopin, On24, Hey Summit, Traction Tech has a few. There are a bunch of articles coming out right now about different platforms. I'm familiar with a couple of them, but we've in the midterm been relying on Zoom to quickly put out content and get in touch with our community. And Maya, if you want to reach out to me or any of you have questions to me afterwards, you can always shoot me an email or Slack me. Part of the conversation here about Slack is we do now have a member channel, and I encourage any of you that are members to join it. There should be a link in your inbox, and I can share it afterwards as well, and we can chat there. Really quickly, I'm loving that you're all writing in questions. So Jay just asked, what's the advantage of Zoom over WebEx, Skype, Google Hangouts? So it's really a personal preference type experience. I've used Google Hangouts in the past as well. I'm not as familiar with WebEx. I've also used Skype. Skype's functionality, I think, is a bit more limited. I don't know that you have the ability, and again, I haven't researched this too much, but I'm not quite sure that you can do the same type of webinar experience or have like a successful multi-video user experience with Skype. Google Hangouts definitely has an effective platform and is probably the main competitor to Zoom, although WebEx is definitely offering an excellent solution too, and I know that they also have a webinar platform. Honestly, it just has to do with what your company is familiar with. It can have to do with users, depending on cost. It's perhaps relevant to have a different platform based on their per user pricing and their offering. You know, some companies that rely on WebEx, I know, use that because I think it's got the highest level of security and encryption. For other folks, if it's just for like public events like this or webinars or just simple check-ins that don't require as much encryption or security, they're comfortable with this. It's worth saying all these platforms are secure and they're joinable only through like verified sources. However, it's nice to have something, for example, the government likely is using a system that's perhaps a little bit more advanced. But it's really up to you. There are tons of blogs and articles coming out right now that compare the different platforms and allow you to generate a bit of an opinion and do some research. I've found, you know, as a new Zoom user, the platform to be really friendly. There's a lot of cool tools to it, and I like the customization. I enjoy the fact that you can easily schedule meetings, schedule webinars, just at any point in time, jump on your personal meeting. So one cool thing about Zoom is you always have a personal meeting room up, and I can actually share that right now with everyone very quickly. I'm going to just quickly share my screen here. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone can see what I've got going on here, which has my schedule. So I made a test meeting earlier today for 1 to 2 o'clock, and it shares my meeting ID. It also has my main settings for creating a new meeting, joining any meeting where you can put in the meeting ID, for scheduling, which you can do right here in the Zoom app. This is all the Zoom app, and for sharing a screen. What's pretty cool about the new meeting option is that it allows you to go in and immediately choose like what settings you might like to have, and it also creates like a virtual hangout room. So at any point in time, you can just go into new meeting. It'll say your name's personal meeting room, and then you can invite other folks in. So if you're just quickly wanting to hop on a call with a couple of folks and it's not been scheduled, you can just send them your personal meeting ID, which is something you can customize, and everyone can instantly join in. All right, I am going to see. So I have someone, RPG has been raising their hand. Is this a question that hasn't been answered yet? Kind of relying on you to maybe unraise your hand or raise it. Okay, cool. Michael is asking if I can put a document or spreadsheet onto the screen. I was thinking that I would send some more links after this call. I can share a couple of screenshots as well, and I was going to share my screen with when I'm reviewing Slack too, if that's comfortable with everyone. But please, like, write in questions if you have any input here. So that's a little bit about Zoom. It's been a little bit all over the place. I'm hoping to be able to share with you the Zoom web platform, which I've also found to be incredibly helpful. So I'm going to share my screen one more time here for Zoom. All right, so I'm hoping that everyone can see this Zoom page. So this is the main web scheduling platform for Zoom. So when you create an account, it brings you to this page and allows you to first customize your platform. I'm in Erin's account right now. So you can add in your headshot, your name, you can customize your personal meeting ID. You'll notice that it says edit over here on the right. What I do, what a lot of us tend to do, is change the meeting ID number to our phone numbers in the office, just so that's easy, something that you can remember. The settings in here also allow you to format your videos, your keys, any kinds of passwords. In here, you can also see any meetings you have going on. So we've got a couple sample meetings here. Then we've also got upcoming webinars. So right now you can see that we've got the webinar Zoom functionality, and you can see we've got this intro going on right now. We've got our scheduled webinar for this Friday talking about the COVID pandemic. And we've got an upcoming webinar in a couple of weeks with the Department of Labor. So this is a great way just to see on the web what's going on in Zoom, although almost all of this, specifically the meeting functionality, can be done through the Zoom desktop app as well. Beyond that, while I'm sharing my screen, I wanted to introduce you all to Slack, which I want to make sure we spend enough time on here as well. So if you are not familiar with Slack, it's essentially an instant messaging tool that allows for workplace collaboration. In recent weeks and months, more organizations have been creating Slack channels for them to interact with their members, their customers, and their clients, and the New Jersey Tech Council has done that as well. So what we have done is create a Slack workplace called NJTC Digital, which all of you here who are on this webinar that are members have access to. And this is a massive channel that allows us to communicate as a community. So when you join Slack, and you can do that by either creating a new Slack channel for free or on a paid plan on slack.com, or you can simply type in the Slack channel URL to your browser and it'll allow you to sign in. So for example, the Tech Council's URL is njtcdigital.slack.com. When you join, it automatically will prompt you into a couple of different channels, including ones like general, which is just an automatic catch-all for everything. Most companies will try to leverage sub-channels, including like you see on the side here, for organization and to better guide the conversation. So we've created, for example, an intros channel so that every single new person, every single one of you that joins our Slack channel can share a little bit about themselves here. And as you see over the last couple of days, like we've been getting quite a few of these. We also have an events channel for our events and any other partner events that we find that we think might be relevant for our community. And anyone that's on the Slack channel is encouraged to join. In addition to leveraging Slack, it's a great tool to be a little bit more informal and to communicate better with your team. So what can help is creating a profile for yourself that's a little bit more robust. So adding in your headshot, your title, you can set a status so that your other team members know what's going on with you. Right now, since everyone's working remote, there's a little bit of that accountability and sort of unknown with what maybe other folks on your team are doing. So you can actually set a status to say, example, I'm in a meeting for 1 hour. You can even make it to clear later today, tomorrow. You can do a custom date and time. And I like to continuously update throughout the day so the team knows what I'm working on, and they can decide based on what my status is, if they want to set up a call, if they want to reach out, or if they want to perhaps just let me focus on what I'm working on for a couple of hours. And we've heard from a lot of different folks that this can be a really tough to handle because you're constantly wanting to talk to people and everyone needs that little bit of heads down time to work on some key projects. So setting a status can be really helpful, and filling out your profile information can be a great way to let other people in the channel learn a little bit more about you, especially when it's in a broader channel like this, which is not just for your immediate team, but for a larger community like we've done for the Tech Council. I'll also share with you one pretty cool thing with Slack is that this is our New Jersey Tech Council internal Slack channel. So Anna is one of my colleagues who's sitting in on this webinar right now. What we found that's pretty cool is that you can actually call people via Slack. So I'm not going to call her right now because I think she's watching this webinar and I don't know if she'll be able to pick up, but you can actually do voice calls or video calls over Slack to ensure that you're just getting instant communication. So beyond just typing or sharing documents or sharing links, like you can even just use this platform to directly communicate with your team. All right, so since I've been on screen share, I've missed a couple of questions. So I'm gonna review them real quickly. So Zoom has some features that I just showed. I'm a consultant and it's challenging to figure out which tools to use that will be accepted and used by present and future clients. So Jay, that's an excellent question. What I think is cool about Zoom is the fact that if your client is perhaps a little wary to use digital tools or to download the Zoom app, or perhaps it's just time sensitive and prefers to just use their phone, they can just dial into the Zoom meeting. If you don't require like a screen share to show something via video, they can just simply dial in. So you could be joining like I am right now on your laptop, clicking in and either staring at yourself or just talking into your screen, while their audio and their contribution is through their phone. And I think that's one of the best ways to make sure that you're communicating with clients and customers in the way that they're most comfortable. And that's one of the coolest things about Zoom. Like I can be joining from my computer and my client can be joining from their phone, or they can be joining from their desktop, or they could be on the website version. There's a lot of opportunity here to make sure that you're speaking to folks in whichever medium makes the most sense for them. And I think that that's really the best way to look at what's going on right now. You want to be in constant communication with your customers, with your clients, prospects, community, vendors. This is the time when additional communication is key. You want to check in on folks. And so even if you're doing just as a courtesy, like a weekly check-in call via Zoom, and it's just a meeting where some folks can join via video, some can join via their phone, to just talk about what's going on, maybe ask some questions, check in, whether it's for your team too, or for that larger group. Zoom is a nice way to allow people to communicate in the form that makes the most sense for them. Maya also asked about the advantage of using Slack versus a LinkedIn or Facebook group. So it really just has to do with the content curation. We've found that Slack is really helpful because we can have those channels within the workplace. So in the New Jersey Tech Council digital workspace, which is open to all of our members, we can do a specific channel for intros, for upcoming events, for news, for sharing advice and best practices, for business resources. We can make 10, 20, 30 different channels so that our community, when they join, are able to quickly access what's important to them and share their input or ask for advice and whichever channel makes the most sense. We're big on trying to keep things organized, and so that's why we really prefer Slack. Facebook groups are also really key, and we've had experience with them. Erin has had a Propelify Insiders Facebook group that they ran and kept a really close eye on, and it was extremely successful. That one really is just, again, about communicating in the platform that makes the most sense for people. We've found that over time, folks have been adapting Slack more and more than they've maybe been checking their Facebook. And since many organizations already rely on Slack, adding in another Slack channel or another Slack workspace is an easier thing to integrate rather than checking your Slack, your email, your Google Drive, your website, and then going back out to Facebook. It's really just a matter of personal preference. So in a membership group, like I do think Slack is a great way to monitor it. You can also verify folks that are joining. You can send out invites, giving them access to specific channels and specific functionality. It really just depends on what you're interested in achieving with the channel as well. Like if this is just for weekly or monthly updates, maybe you really only need a Facebook or a LinkedIn group just to provide that notification. If you're interested in fostering more of a community and fostering connections and some sort of thought leadership or guidance for the rest of your community, I think Slack might be the way to go. But that's just my opinion. I'm just checking the Q&A here. Does Zoom or Slack offer whiteboard functionality for interactive discussions while on the conference? I will show you right now. It does. Let's say whiteboard. Okay, so here's the whiteboard functionality so that you can do text, draw, stamps, spotlight. So if I want to do text, I could say thank you for joining this webinar. Webinar will be on YouTube tomorrow. And then someone else would be able to join in with their own notes. And perhaps you can draw because you're more of like a visual person and you want to have like a line drawing from this point to a point that you've written over here that says, you know, 2020 vision, if you're doing some sort of playbook or something like that. And you can collaborate. Webinar mode makes it so that only my whiteboard is available to me, but in a standard meeting mode, which 99% of you will be using, you would all individually be able to collaborate using this. Just checking. Okay, so we've got a couple minutes left here. I know I've sort of jumped all over the place as I've been answering your questions, and I really appreciate folks engaging with me. This isn't the standard interview type. I'm sort of engaging with all of you through the Zoom functionality here. What I'm hoping to do is share with each of you post-webinar some more information, screenshots, links that can help you set up Zoom or Slack. What I'm really curious to know, and maybe you can do this by just writing in or raising your hand, how many of you up until today were completely unfamiliar with Zoom and Slack? And how many of you would maybe listen to like a Zoom professional webinar or a Slack professional webinar? Because they do produce them and they've been doing more of that these days. All right, I've got a couple hands up. So it seems to me like maybe many of you have used Slack or Zoom before, but perhaps just weren't as familiar with the functionality and best practices to use. So maybe I'll just leave you with some tips that I've learned. So Slack and Zoom, I think I've said already, like if you can join a Zoom call via video, it's nice to let people see what's going on and see your face, interact with you. We've shared this before via the New Jersey Tech Council. When you're joining a Slack call, if you can have your computer camera raised so that they're not looking at the bottom of your chin, if you can have a well-lit area, if you can make sure you're in a quiet room, like doing all these small things, especially if you're in sales or customer support and you're in a customer-facing role, it just helps to project a little bit more of a confident persona. So those little easy tips are something that's nice to do. And with Zoom, when you're scheduling a meeting, you can even provide an agenda. You can work on any types of presentation tools that you might normally do in a person-to-person meeting. You can convert them pretty easily to a Zoom meeting. What I'm hearing from some of you is it would be good to see a full introductory Zoom link. So I'm going to send that to you because I would rather you hear it directly from them, and I know that they offer some great pre-recorded content for you all. I'm hoping to just be here to answer a couple of questions and show you how we've been leveraging the tool. As far as Slack goes, and I think this is important right now, written word can definitely be misconstrued. Right now, everyone is on a little bit of a stressful journey. And I think it's important to try to take anything that's been written to you in the best possible light. It's really easy sometimes to maybe misinterpret things that people are slacking you or emailing you or kind of saying when they're in that very quick offhand note and they're trying to just get something out there. So if I can encourage all of you just to try to take everything with a grain of salt and encourage the best of folks and really just try to use this time to leverage tools like Zoom and Slack to check in with one another, check in on one another, encourage communication, try to use these tools to provide as much information to your teams as you can. You know, so much can often get done in a vacuum when we're all working in our own homes. So the more that you can share with either your community or your team internally, I think would be appreciated overall by everyone. And I think what I'll do is share with you some additional insights and tips and intro videos on both Slack and Zoom so that you all can take a look at it. I'm really hoping that if any of you just have questions about using this and perhaps you don't want to reach out to other folks in your company or you're having trouble hearing back from Zoom or Slack support teams, that I can help as well. And I can be reached in the New Jersey Tech Council Digital Slack channel, or I can be reached via email at Jasmine, Jasmine, at njtc.org. But I will be in touch with more resources and more information. And if any of you have questions, please let me know. I hope you'll all join our Slack channel and get familiar with Slack in a comfortable and inviting community. And I hope to see you all soon at the next time the New Jersey Tech Council does something in person. Hi, everyone.